Welcome back to Goldwynn Dinner Club. I'm Grif.
I'm Parker.
Okay, so in the last episode, right before the episode ended, you brought up Tom Arnold. And yes. I just want to say real quick, one of my favorite movies of all time, and no one ever talks about this, is The Stupids. The Stupids,
I think I knew that about you, yeah.
Is one of the funniest movies ever made.
And it's in the same vein as Dumb and Dumber, right? It's in the same sort of vein of like everything's a one-liner.
Yeah, every scene is just like a one-off joke. And it's just threading this story where Tom Arnold thinks that someone's stealing his garbage. It's literally just that the garbage man came and took it.
If you had told me that you created that premise, I would believe you. That is a very, as we say, that is a very Grif premise.
Everybody should go find that movie right now and watch it. I promise you won't be disappointed. They had stop motion cat and dog, because it was based on a children's book, so they tried to be like as close to the children's book.
Could you imagine selling a book to children nowadays with the word "stupid" in the title?
Oh, you couldn't, yeah. But like one of the best jokes is there's a scene where he's spying on this like illegal gun trade going on, and he disguises himself by just putting a bush over him, and he's like trying to get in character, and he's like, all right, just be a bush, just pretend you're a bush, think like a bush, just absorbing some sunlight, just taking it all in, and I have arms, I'm a bush with arms, I can walk, I'm a bush who can walk. And he's like, and he starts like cheering for himself because he's the first bush to ever cross between a man and a bush. And then a couple of the gun dealers look over at him like he's an idiot, and he quickly ducks back down. He's like, "Fools thought I was a bush."
He nailed it.
That's one of the best movies ever made. I love it so much.
You know what? While we're talking about like weird '90s movies that like we've now crossed over from like, here's the gold standards to, all right, here's some weirder stuff. Like Hats Off. If you guys ever watch Hats Off Entertainment on YouTube, they're always talking about almost cult classics. And I'm like, I've seen every single one of these. Just because eventually you got a slow night at the Blockbuster. You got to pick something.
Yeah.
One that I revisited, I think it was on Netflix or something. I think it's just called Bully or Big Bully or something. I think it might be Big Bully.
Oh, with Tom Arnold.
Another Tom Arnold. And Rick Moranis. Like it's you know what? Like all the reviews are pretty poor. They're wrong. It's actually pretty damn funny.
Yeah,
because
Rick
it's just
Moranis,
this weird.
Can't go
it's
wrong.
Like the formula is as if it's a rom-com, but it is between two people who hate each other, and and
also carpools in the same vein.
Like Tom Arnold is kind of excellent, and are we like becoming Tom Arnold fans? I don't know. But there is a gag in that movie, and it also reminds me of you because I'm like, Grif would totally just put this in something. There's just a character who's one of the main. Rick Moranis has like kind of 3 childhood friends, and they talk about them in the beginning, and they're not really super important. It's like a parody of Stand By Me. They're almost making fun of Stand By Me as a genre, sort of thing. So he's got the 3 friends who, you know, like, oh, they're the Stephen King characters or whatever. But one of them likes to play with fire. That's his personality, and it begins and ends there. He's just a pyromaniac. And as an adult, he's now a fireman. And that's deeply troubling, but he's still playing with fire. And I think there's a scene where he's like, hey, kids, check this out. He's just at the school for some reason, and he has set his arm on fire and is waving it around in the background. And it has nothing to do with anything. And then when Rick Moranis thinks he's killed Tom Arnold later, the guy who shows up and is there for him to help him hide the evidence and kill the body is the pyromaniac. And he's giving him great advice. And I'm like, this is insane. He's like, yeah, you don't want to tell anybody. We're going to go ahead and drop you off here. I'm going to go ahead and say I saw you at this. But he's like, the pyro has clearly done some of this stuff before. But then here's the pièce de résistance. Here's what cemented this as an actual great movie for me. So after he thinks he's killed, you know, his bully Tom Arnold, he goes home, and I think it's Jeffrey Tambor plays his like really annoying neighbor that he kind of hates and thinks is sort of one-dimensional. And he's like, he's shambling home and he's sweating. He's like, gee, neighbor, what happened? And he comes over and he's like, I think something horrible happened. And he's like, you killed your bully, didn't you? And he's like, what? How could you know that? And he's like, I mean, it just seems obvious. He's like, you guys have been going at it. And he has this insanely long, beautifully rehearsed speech about the nature of hatred and like why it happens. And it's very poetic. And he seems like a one-dimensional character, but he's got all this down pat, and Jeffrey Tambor delivers it perfectly. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, I mean, I nearly killed my wife last year. And he's like, what? What are you telling me? And he's like, you're going to judge me now, Mr. Murderer? You know what? Why don't you screw yourself or whatever? He like turns around and leaves. It's just the weirdest. I'm like, this movie went from, I feel bad for the critics because I feel like they watched it and thought, man, this is pretty rote. And I'm like, I don't think they understood that it was supposed to be a parody of those type of feel-good 90s comedy movies where these characters were a pastiche. Like, they're making fun of these archetypes, which is why that Jeffrey Tambor character and the Pyro character make a lot more sense with the tone. And maybe they could have pushed it further, but, like, those moments alone, I think, really elevate that movie.
So, brought up the stupid... Another Jessica Lundy movie that a lot of people still talk about, Rocket Man.
Oh yeah,
that is
with
one of the
Harlan Williams, creator of Puppy Dog Pals.
Is he really?
Yeah. Who knew that he's like, Canadian comedian. He's the guy who drinks the piss in Dumb and Dumber.
He was the guy who went to jail in Half Baked.
Yep, that's him. Hey, come on! And his famous catchphrase in stand-up comedy was, "Come on now, won't you? Hey." He's just a weird dude. Yeah, when I saw that he was a creator of Puppy Dog Pals, which is like a Disney Junior show, I was like, no way. I'm like, this dude's filthy. He's got he's a very R-rated comic. Nope, now he just makes a sweet show about little puppies who solve mysteries. Yeah, Rocket Man. I haven't seen that one in forever, but you're right. It's totally in that same sort of 90s. Yeah. It's okay to just be stupid kind of vein.
Yeah, the monkey gets into his cryo sleep chamber, so he can't sleep.
God, screw this. There we go. Boom.
And so he ends up being awake for the entire trip to Mars.
Oh,
and
God.
He eats all their food. Or he like paints a mural on the wall with the food too. Because all the food's paste. That's a myth, by the way, that astronauts can only eat paste in space.
Yeah, I heard that recently, that it's like astronaut ice cream, and they're like, we've never eaten that a day in our lives.
Yeah, they can eat real food. I think like things that are too crummy create a problem.
Yeah, because the particles will fly around.
Yeah, but like I don't see any reason you couldn't eat just like, a protein bar or something. Or like,
what do you think a spazer is? A space laser or a spaced out laser or a spam taser?
Wait, this is called the spazer?
Spazer beam, yeah.
I always thought it was phaser.
No, a spazer, because I believe it's because the beams space out.
My brain just read it the way I wanted to read it. Oh, the space out. That makes sense.
Yeah, a spaced out laser, a spazer, combined with the ice beam there. I love the sound design in this game too. What's great is like it's kind of hard to tell. It would have been hard to tell on like a standard definition TV, but there's like subtle boiling on her sprite.
Yeah,
you can see like light flickering on it and stuff.
And like the breathing motion and
yeah.
I've looked at all the sprite sheets for this game, and like the number of sprites for her character alone are insane.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty. Good old Samus.
So she can wall jump in this game?
Totally, yeah. There's characters that teach it to you. Don't really need to up until a certain point. And I think a lot of people who just casually play this game struggle with it. But there's an entire section where the Etacoons, I believe they're called, the little like raccoon aliens that you rescue, they teach you how to do it. By just looking at them, they're like, hey, follow us. And then they start wall jumping. And it's like, get it? Yeah, you got to rescue them.
They're in Metroid Fusion also.
They are, yeah. And I think that's what makes it canon, that like you must rescue them on this mission, because while they are optional, like, come on.
What are you doing?
I think it was the game director who was like, yeah, your run doesn't count if you don't save them.
Yeah, what are you doing if you're not saving? Like, what's the point?
You're just running.
just
But yeah,
escaping.
I love that he's like, it doesn't count then. I'm like, yeah, good for you. He's like, yeah, we made it optional, but it doesn't count.
Fusion is actually weirdly more accurate to being based on Alien, because in that one you're actually being hunted by something, and you
Yes, and
cannot fight it. Like
they
you
want
have
to
to
push
run away.
that. They're pushing that even further with the whole like dread thing. I've been watching
Yeah.
their development reports, and they're like, we just want to have, they're like, as much as we did it with SAX, we want to go even further with the idea that like you just enter a room and you're upset. you can hear the thing that's coming for you. And I'm watching some of those videos of that thing slinking around these areas, like it's taking shortcuts to get at you.
Yeah.
So if you're not running, it's like, ooh, I don't like that. Ooh, Mufasa. Ooh, say it again.
Mufasa.
Ooh, I get chills. God, Sam was just like, give me a break.
For the longest time, I thought
Nah.
that Ed was played by Jim Brewer.
It's Jim Cummings.
I know. I don't know why I thought it was Jim Brewer. I was like, why would you get Jim Brewer to just make noises?
I get that because he's got the kind of dead-eyed, slobbering kind of like bleh thing. Like that's his shtick for the longest time. So I get that, and he was kind of in the zeitgeist. Good old Jim Brewer. I don't know what he's doing now. He's doing a podcast like anyone else.
Another episode of Goldwynn Dinner Club. We'll see you tomorrow for more Super Metroid.
See ya.